Hey everyone, today I'm going to show how to create effective indexes in DynamoDB table step by step. I'm going to cover all the aspects of the indexes from beginning to advanced with the demo, so you will get a better understanding. So starting from what is index and why we need index in DynamoDB table, then basic of partition key and sort key in the DynamoDB table. After that, what are the available index in DynamoDB table. With this, I'm going to cover global index and the local index. Lastly, how to create effective indexes, especially how to pick right key attributes for the local and global indexes. Of course, you can easily create indexes, but what is the point of creating the indexes if the indexes are not going to use or effective? So therefore, we need to create effective indexes which going to help to increase performance and reduce the cost. Other than this video, I'm going to create a few videos related to DynamoDB table to cover more advanced topic such as a DynamoDB stream, replication, global table. So if you are interested, please stay tuned with my channel. However, with this video, I'm going to talk about mainly cover indexes. So as usual, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Let's get in. What is index? As same for the other databases, the index in DynamoDB helps to accelerate application access and data retrieval. As mentioned, the main purpose of having indexes is increase the performance of accessing data. By default, there will be an index whenever you create a table with the primary key. In every database system, table has a primary key. In DynamoDB table context, we call partition key, which become a primary key. So accessing the data using the primary key is really fast. So let's see, this is with an example. So this is a sample table in a DynamoDB table. Whenever you try to create a new DynamoDB table in AWS, you need to specify the partition key. As per this example, this customer order table, a customer ID is a partition key, which is the primary key in this table, and the order ID, delivery status, address, and there could be more columns which are called attributes. The item we call in the DynamoDB table is each row. There are two concepts in the DynamoDB table when you fetch data. The first one we call it scan, the second one we call is query. If you use a delivery status column or this attribute to fetch the data, it's called in scanning. So what does it scanning mean? It's need to read whole table to fetch this data. If you fetch data through delivery status, if you fetch data through the customer ID, which is called query. In this case, it's going to use indexes, which is very fast, and that is something we're going to try to achieve with this tutorial. Let's see why the index is so fast. Whenever you create a partition key or primary key on the customer order table, in the behind the scene, it's create a separate structure for the customer ID index. So as you can see, the customer ID index is a sorted order. And the base table, this is the one in the right side, which has a John first, but in the customer ID index structure, which has a John in the third, because this is a sorted order. In the application, let's say we want to fetch the item which is a customer ID is a John. It first goes to the customer ID index. It's finding the John, then John, the particular record, it's pointing to right item in a base table. So in this case, it doesn't need to scan whole table because they know where's the actual item with the John. So that's why the query, the data is super fast compared with the scan. So let's have a quick look. This is how it's index working. So as far as you create another index, let's say order ID, they will maintain the separate structure for the order ID with the ascending or descending, whatever you mention. So just before go to the demo, so let's have a look quickly what is this sort key. Sort key in a DynamoDB table is optional. as per this example, as far as you can, you added the sort key into order ID table, you can add another record with the same name John. If you don't have a order ID, a sort key on the order ID, you are not able to add another John record, another item with the John, because primary key will be the customer ID. As far as you added the sort key and the partition key will be a primary key. It's a combination of partition key and the sort key will be a primary key, which is we call composite key. Then you are allowed to add another record with the same name John and the different order ID. Again, you are not able to add another same record with the John and the order ID 5, because it's not uniquely identified for this table. What we have to do, you can add another John with the different order ID. That is a sort key. So we will see in a demo how this partition key, sort key, attributes, and next we will see the local index and the global index. I'm back in my AWS console. What I'm doing, I'm searching DynamoDB table. DynamoDB, click on the first link. So this is a screen you end up with. As you mentioned, AWS give a DynamoDB database. You can create a table. You can't create a database. Database is already there. You can create a table inside the database. Let's go to the table, and we don't have any table. Let's create a new table. Give it a name. I give a customer order as a table name, and the partition, yes, of course we need to give a partition. The sort key is optional, the partition key is a must. It's a required. Give it a customer ID, and you can select as a basic type, which is it's a binary, it's a 0 or 1, a number, a string. So those are the things available for the partition key. Same for the sort key. We will come to the sort key later. Let's create the partition key and go with the default settings. In this tutorial, I'm more focusing on the indexes. So if you want to know more about DynamoDB table, database, in the more advanced other settings other than that index, so you can find the video link in my description below. So let's create a table. Right, it's take a few seconds. Let's give it a few seconds, and we will, once it finished, we will come and have a look. Right, so we got the table. Let's click on the customer table name, and this is where you can see some settings, some properties of the customer order table. What we interesting to see the item. Either you can select click on the Explore table item, or you can select Explore item in the left side menu. I'm click on the Explore item, and this is currently we do have only one table, and select the first table if you have a multiple table. And this is where you can see the actual items. I'm getting some more rooms. This is where if you have some item, you can see here over here. Currently we don't have an item. Let's create a few items and then see what is a scan and what is a query. Let's create an item. As a custom ID is a partition key which is required, you need to give a custom ID, and then you can add any more attribute. Let's say you want to add a order ID, which is a string or number, boolean. You can select the type of the attribute. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new attribute order ID. Let's say ORD. Let's say order ID is 01, ORD1, and you can add a more attribute. Let's say delivery status. Let's say delivered. Let's type delivered, and let's add more. Let's say maybe the address. Let's add another one called address. Let's say Australia, where I'm living. Right, I create item. So here we see the item we just added. So let's add a couple of items as I mentioned. Let's say Warwick. And again, either you can select only the custom ID, and you can add a different attribute. It's not necessarily be the same attribute. This is the beauty of the DynamoDB table. This is not a relational database. You can add as much as different properties of the different attributes. Let's say this is order ORD 02. Then let's add another string, delivery status. Let's say pending, something like that. Let's create a another one address. Let's add another one address. Let's say this is USA. Right, currently we do have two items. What I'm going to do, I'm go offline and create a few items and come back. Alright, so in offline I create 4 items. Either you can create select the item and you can duplicate. This is an easy way you can create more item, or otherwise you can use some batch processing. Of course, I'm not gonna go for that. This is a simple tutorial. Right, so as you can see, we do have 4 items. What we're gonna do, if we click on this arrow, what we can say, you can scan or query item. So if I select the scan, you can select the this is a table, the one that you are saying, and we said we need to specific attribute. You can select all attribute or specific attribute, or let's say we need to get the delivery. Let's say copy, this is delivery status, and give it a name. So basically, if I run this, what's going to happen, we do have 2 items with the delivery status delivered. So over here, what's going to happen, it's go through the whole every item in the table. So this is scanning the table. This is a very costly, as you can see, DynamoDB table, we have to pay for the DynamoDB table per read capacity and the write capacity. As far as you are reading the more data, it's mean its cost will be increased. So we should, that's why we should read less data, so it's minimize our AWS cost. Let's go to the query. So if I select the query, what we can see, you can see only the custom ID. You don't have any other option to filter out. So you can give a name, say John, and you can run. So this one we don't need to do it because this is not something we do. We select the John, and John will be returning. So this is the the query use indexes. So as I mentioned, the customer ID get is the partition key of this table, and indirectly it's create an index for us automatically. That's implicit. It's not explicit. It's implicit. Let's say you want to create a let's say most of the time what's going to happen, I'm going to reset. I'm go to there, and I get all the table. Let's have a look. I guess somewhere we do have a, okay, let's scan. So currently we do have 4 items. Let's say you want to add an index on the delivery status. For example, give me your application, your front-end application need all the customer who has a delivery status is delivered, right? So in that case, what we're going to do, we are not using a custom ID. What we using the delivery status to filter. So in such a case, as if I at this moment, if we do the delivery status, if we filter with the delivery status, so it's used the scanning operation on the table, and it's read one item at a time. So it's basically it's go through if you have a 1 million record, it need to go through the whole 1 million records, because it doesn't have any index. That's where the local index and the global index comes. So let's have a look what is the global index and what is a local index. Just before go to a local and a global index, I just want to mention one thing on the sort key. Current table have only one partition key. So if you want to add a sort key for this same table, you are not able to add because the table got created already. If you want to add a sort key, you have to do at the beginning, at the creation of the table. So please make sure you are adding the sort key at the creation of the time, not because it's not allowed to add update delete a sort key or partition key after creating the table. About the local and the global indexes. Those local and global indexes are sometimes people called secondary indexes. So let's say a definition of the global secondary index. The global secondary index is an index with the partition key and a sort key that can be different from those in the table. Those in the table mean this base table. And what does it mean? Let's say you can create a global index. Let's say we are creating the global index on the odd ID. So the current partition key is a custom ID. You can create a global index on the odd ID. Global index on the odd ID as a partition key. This is a new partition key for the global, and you can create a sort key as a delivery status. So this is our global index. So it's not necessarily be a existing partition key. You can select a different partition key and the sort key as a global index. But in the other end, in the local index is not. If we create a local index, what we're gonna do? Local index is always local index. It's always will be custom ID, will be partition key, and you can select any other sort key. So maybe you can select index, address, or maybe another attribute or delivery state, whichever it could be. The idea is whenever you create a local index, the existing partition key will be always part of the local index. You can select only the sort key from the rest of the attribute. That's the difference between global and the local index. Let's delete this. Right, there's another concept called the projection. Let's say we create a global index on the order ID, and we need to tell, okay, what are the projection? Either you can select all the columns as a projection, or you can select a few columns. Let's think about, let's say we select a projection as this column, like let's say delivery status as a one projection column on address, and maybe attribute. There are 3 columns as a projection. We create a global index on the odd ID and the projection as these 3 columns, maybe 2 columns. Let's get 2 columns to make sure. Like, what's going to happen if you query this table using this global index? You are only able to access these 2 columns. You are not able to access the attribute 1, for example. Let's say if you want to get the odd ID, delivery status, address, and attribute 1 using this global index, you are querying through the global index. You are not able to get this attribute 1 unless this one is a part of the projection. This is a global index. So you can select actually the all attribute part of the projection when you create the table. I'll show in a demo, but otherwise you can select only the specific attribute. Basically, what's going to happen if you create the global index with the projection, basically it's create a separate copy of these columns. The odd ID, in this case odd ID, delivery status, and address in the separate structure. Someone used query the global index, though it's rather than using this base table, it's used the separate structure which has only the odd ID, delivery status, and the address. That's why if you do not have a projection, you can't access this the other attributes. In the other hand, the local index is different. Like if you create the local index on the odd ID, of course, like whenever you create the local index, the partition key will be the existing ID, and you can select only the sort key. In this case, let's say we select as a sort key as an odd ID or the delivery status. But in this case, you not necessarily mention the projection, because the local index created on the base table, which is on the existing table. It's not creating the separate structure. And the one thing, another thing I need to mention, if you create a global index, you can select the different read and write capacity. I'm talking about read and capacity in the different video, but the local index use the existing read and write capacity of the base table. For the global index, you need to specify different read and write capacity. That's all about the global index. Let's go to the console and see this in a demo. Right, so I'm back in my AWS console. I select update setting, select the customer order table, and I'm going to create an index. So click on the create index, which will come up with the global index. Because the table is already got created, you are not able to create a local index. You can create only the global index. And here in the index itself, you can select the partition key, which is different to the one that already there. So if I open another tab, our table, so basically I'm exploring, so you can see the custom ID is the existing partition key. What we can select any other column as a index. Let's say partition keys, our partition keys delivery status, and you can give a sort key, a different sort key, maybe the order ID as a sort key. So what I'm going with just only the partition key, and you can select the type, of course. And as I mentioned, you can select read capacity and the write capacity from the you can copy from the all the settings from the base table, or you can customize a different one. So the default setting is copy from the base table. I'm not gonna go through this one. What I'm interested with this, the projection. This is the one that I mentioned, projection. So whenever you create the global index, you can select projection with all the attributes. That means whatever the attributes in the base table will be part copy into a global index, or you can select only the keys. In this case, you can access only the delivery state. That's all you can access if you query through this new global index. So we can give it, we need to give a name. So basically it's get created all automatically, or either you can change the name. So delivery status, the name of the global index. So if I go back to my projection again, either you can include any specific attribute separately. Let's say we specifically asking address. So let's say address. And you can add the more attributes, of course. Sometimes those attributes not exist at the moment, but in the later on it could be comes. But you can mention in the all the attributes. So let's say I'm creating the global index for the delivery status, and give a projection only for the address. So let's create a global index. Let's give a few seconds. Once it created, okay, pretty quick. I'm get more spaces. Give it a refresh. Seems it, because it's a global index, it's pretty much creating the whole table again with the projection column. I'll come back when this delivery index got created. Right, so our global index got created, and what we can see on the indexes, you can see the new global index, but the one that we created. So let's go to table and try to query now. So if I go, this is our table, and if I select the scan and query and go to query, click on the query, and what you can see now, you can see the, okay, you need to give a bit of refresh. Query, and what you can see, we do have a table. Still I'm select the custom order table, and you can see the table, and you can see the index, delivery index, status index, the one that we created as a global index. Here we can select this, and let's say delivered, and you can run the query. So this will return the data. As you can see, you can't get the other attribute. For example, if I open the whole table, this is our table. Table has a this is a scan. I do the scanning, and So scan. So in the base table we do have a custom ID, address, delivery status, and the order ID. But if I go to the other tab, which is I got filtered with our global index, what you can see only the address and delivery status, because we haven't done the we haven't add the order ID int and attribute. So we do have attributes, right? So basically, okay, currently we don't have attribute. Order ID into our global index. So therefore we are not able to access our order ID. We can only access the original partition ID, partition column, and this is the our global index partition, the delivery status. This is our projection, which is address. So that's how the global index work. Now let's go to we need to drop a table and recreate the table to create a local index. Right, I delete the existing table. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a table with the local index. Click on the create and give it a name. Still our table name is customer order, and you need to give a partition key, which is customer ID. Customer ID, our partition key. You can specify the sort key if you like. And then if you go further down in custom settings, if you select the custom settings, select this one, that's fine. And if you go further down, you should have a secondary index. So this is where you can create a new local index. As I mentioned, the local index shares the existing read and write capacity of the base table. It does not necessarily need a separate read or write capacity like a global index. So I'm gonna create a secondary. This is in over here again, you can create either a global index at the beginning or create a local index. In this case, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a local index. So when you create a local index, as you can see, it does not allow to add a new partition key, because the local index use this existing partition key. What you can see, you can spy only the new sort key. So let's say this is address. Address is a string. Again, you can select only projection or all the attributes or only the keys, and include, you can specify if specific attributes. So I'm creating the index. We create a index type is local. If you like, you can create a global index at the same time. Then I'm gonna create a table. One known parameter is invalid, so keys may not have a range key. Okay, so which is required when you specify local secondary index. Okay, so basically what you need to do, if you go again, right, I'm back in my AWS console. What we're gonna do, I'm already delete the existing table. We're gonna create a new table with the local index. Click on the create table and give it a name. And here we're gonna give a customer ID, which is a partition key, and I'll keep the sort key optional, and I'll come back because I need to mention we should get an error when if you do not sort key but you are adding the local index. So I'll come to here after that. Once you get the error, I want to show you the error. So keep the sort key as optional, and in the default setting this time we are gonna customize settings because we need to add the local index. And the secondary indexes, here we can create either a global index or the local index. In this time we're going to create a local index. Here again, so what we can do, as you can see, when you create a local index, it doesn't allow you to create create a new partition key. So it used the existing partition key, but you can mention a new different sort key. So let's say this one, we say address, the sort key, and again same thing, projection applicable for the global index as I mentioned. Let's try to create index. So this should get error. So this one, okay, this is got created. The index got created. The type is local. What we're gonna do, we're gonna click on the create table. So whenever you start creating a table, you got an error. So the issue says if you're creating the local index, you should have a sort key. So what's going to happen if you go to the base table? We haven't specified the sort key. So let's specify sort key. Our sort key is odd ID. And another thing I need to mention, as I mentioned in the global, when I explain in the global index, when you create a local index, you don't need to specify a separate read or write capacity, because it shares the base table read and write capacity. Everything is done. Now this should create a table. Yep, so it's starting creating the table. Once created, I'll come back. Right, table got created. Let's have a look what's inside the table. Click on the table name and go to the indexes, and what you can see, it's under local secondary index. You can see the new index what we added. This is a local index. We haven't added the global index. Right, now let's see if we go to the table and let's see explore our table item. Currently we don't have any item. What we do, we will start creating a few items. Now we do have a sort key as a odd ID. We need to specify sort key. Let's say John, and same way, and you can add a new attribute. Let's say address. Which is Australia, and we will add another one, maybe delivery status, this one. Copy and create item. Right, so item got created. What I'm going to do, I'm copy this item, maybe 2 times should be okay. Duplicate item, this is Warwick. This is odd item 2, and maybe this is Japan, and this is pending. Let's say pending, and create item. So we got a 2 item created. I'm repeating another one to make sure. This is ABBA, odd item 3. Let's say Australia, pending. Right, so we got 3 items created. So if I go to query again and give it a refresh, make sure you get sometimes you need to give a refresh, otherwise it won't show the indexes. And query, and what you can see, so the new index, which is address index, and you can select address index, and here what we need to do, you need to customize is already there, because as I mentioned, when you create a local index, the existing partition key, the partition key of the base table will be partition key of the local index, and you can only specify the sort key. So sort key, let's say Japan, and then you can run a query. You have paused this operation to continue operation. Stop, please confirm. Right, so currently we don't have any, or maybe I need to have a look at data. Let's have a look data. Scan table. Let's have a look the data. Custom table. Right, we do have this. Okay, John and the Japan, and okay, John is not in Japan, so it should be Australia. So if I say select Australia, this should return 1 record. So this is how local index work. So local index, as far as index, you can query the data, which is minimize the scanning, so you don't need to scan whole table. So especially this is as I mentioned, the index is just gonna be used for the performance, and it's indirectly reduce the cost, because as much as you read the data, you have to pay. So if you read the 1 million record in the table, so you need to pay more compared with the you are reading the less record using the query. So that's all about the indexes in DynamoDB table. So if you're interested, it's really good, and if you have any question, please comment below. And the last thing I need to mention, right, the table got created with the local index. Let's have a look how does it look like. So select the table, go to indexes. Under local secondary index, you can see the local index, the one that we created. So the partition key is the same as the base table, and the sort key, which is different to base table. The sort key of the base table is the order ID, but in the index the sort key is an address, but is still sharing the same partition key. We haven't created a global index. Now let's go to in the offline. I create a few items for this table to make sure we are not wasting time. So let's say if I want to create a new item, let's say if I go to new item, as you can see, it's come up with the customer ID and the order ID, because now the table has a partition key and the sort key, so you need to specify both keys. So I got a few item, as I mentioned. Let's go to query this table. So if I try to query this table and click on the query, and what you can see in the drop down, either you can select the customer order, which is the one that we mentioned very beginning, and the new index showing up. So select the new index. Whenever you select the new index, you can see customer ID, the existing partition key. You need to mention what is the partition key, and the sort key, which is address. Let's say Australia. Right. So then if I run this, it should return one record because John is on Australia. So here we use the query with the local index. Right, this is how you create the local and the global index. So how do we find in the optimized way, or how to create the effective index? That's based on your application. You need to find the frequent queries of your application, and what are the filtering columns or filtering attributes you're going to use in your application. Let's say your application is more interesting and more likely or more frequently it's filtering the data through the delivery status. Definitely yes, you need to add the index on the delivery status. So maybe your application is filtering the data through the address, then again you need to add the index on the address. Otherwise, what's going to happen, you are filtering with the address. What's going to happen, it's scan the whole table. As I mentioned, if you have a 1 million record in this table, its whole 1 million record will be scanned to find the filtering the data. So that is how you find in the effective indexes based on your application. So hope this video is enjoy and helpful for you. And if you have any comment, please comment below. I'll get. Other than this, there are some other concepts related to the indexes, which are called sparse index and inverted index. So I'll do another video to cover those advanced topics. If you have any question or any comment on this video, please comment below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Again, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Thanks, and see you on next video.